Can we now turn, please, to the final piece of the evening, Keith's setting of the B-Boys' song. And when I read the score, I felt I was in danger of getting stung. And thank you, Tamsin, for accompanying two pieces. So, that was Keith Sparrow's The B-Boys song. Do I see any hands going up? Do I hear any comments bubbling to the surfaces of your minds? Oh, yes.
I really could see those bees going from flower to flower, really. And then whizzing off again. And I could see those bees.
Yes.
Hear them too.
It is a picture kind of a song. In that respect, it's like the two settings of Farewell we heard earlier. Further comments? Am I missing someone? Oh, sorry. Well, it's just you were lurking behind so many others.
Comments always about the accompaniment. I think that was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, yes. As I say, when I read that score, I felt I was in danger of being stung, or else getting my hands covered in honey. So, do I see anyone else waiting to speak? Oh, once again, a stunned silence. I hope that means a good thing and not a bad thing.
Can I ask about something else?
Joyce.
What about, I mean, I noticed the words weren't kept strictly to, and in other pieces, I thought that if you were taking somebody's poem, that you had to keep strictly to their words.
Right. So in answer to that, 2 points arise. First of all, Keith sought out the original poem, and he found that in the original poem there is an opening verse in a different meter which was written in italics. I didn't include that in the main body of the poem I set out, because I thought also setting that verse in a different meter might be a bit tricky for people. But Keith is a keen researcher and was fairly sure I'd left out a bit of the poem. He was absolutely right in that. Now, this business of changing words in a poem, yes, I know some people think that's a very shocking thing to do, and that the words of a poet should be precisely as the poet wrote them and not changed in any other way. I like to think I'm more flexible than that. Indeed, in the words of one of the poems I sent out, The Wild Wind, I did change one or two words to improve the scansion of the poem. I felt there are one or two places where the normally very careful Tolkien hadn't quite got the scansion right. So I changed one or two words, but I didn't tell the students I'd done this. Any other comments on the... Robbie.
Did the composers know the origin of the poems? Because particularly in the farewell,
Yes.
I presume that they knew that the person who wrote it was Chinese, because that came through,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well,
Whereas you could read that poem and not know and not realise that it was anything to do with China.
right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the words you have in front of you are a copy of the words I sent to the composers. So the composers knew as much as you do. You'll see that with each poem, I say who wrote it, and in the case of Li Bao, I think I've written something like Chinese poet, 8th century AD. Can't quite remember what I wrote.
Yeah.
So that was what the composers knew. In Keith's case, because he's a keen researcher, he went further and he found the original poem and saw something I'd left out. I don't know if any of the other composers did that kind of research. I have to confess I didn't ask them in class. Jill?
I felt a little bit worried about taking liberty with the words, but
Yeah.
I partly justified it by thinking, well, this is a translation of the original, clearly
Yeah.
it was in English. And so I felt that gave a little more scope for
Right.
slight
Yes,
changes.
Of course, the poem Jill said is a translation of a poem about 1300 years old. And there's always that problem with translations, that they don't entirely capture and reflect the original. Right. Any other comments on Keith's song? It used to be that I felt that in the context of the WMA, Keith was nipping at my heels. I now have an uncomfortable feeling that I am the one who is nipping at his heels. And for that reason, I put his piece last after my music, rather than putting my music last. So I hope you will agree with that order of the programme. Keith has indeed written a most accomplished song. So if there are no other comments, I thank you all for turning out tonight, and just say one final thing. The course always welcomes new composers. Ben was a new composer here 2 years ago, and Anita Grimwood was a new composer this year. Jill was a new composer to the course, I think, 3 years ago, 2013. So I hope that there may be some amongst you who will also consider taking the composition course in another year. There may well be composition talent lurking unseen somewhere in this audience right now. And I would welcome getting to know that talent if I am asked to teach again next year. But that, of course, is up to the committee. So thank you for turning out tonight. Thank you. Joyce.
Could I just say something? I think it's, 20 odd years since I first came, and I've really enjoyed composing, which I would never have done if I hadn't come here.
My thanks to all the composers who made tonight's concert possible. My apologies to Anita Grimwood, whose music was not heard for reasons I have mentioned. My thanks to the performers, including the wondrous Tamsin. The best thing I ever did for the WMA was introducing Tamsin. My thanks to the audience, and the words of the Beatles. You're such a lovely audience, we'd like to take you home with us. So, thank you everyone who has made this concert